The surveillance camera captured the shocking altercation in vivid detail. Karen's hand shot out, connecting with Sarah's face in a resounding slap that echoed across the neighborhood. Sarah stumbled backward, eyes wide with disbelief. The live stream broadcast the confrontation to everyone within range, leaving the community reeling. What sparked this sudden eruption of violence, and where would the fallout lead? Karen's nostrils flared as she glared at Sarah over the fence dividing their properties. "You've crossed a line one too many times, you selfish bitch," she spat, her voice dripping with venom. Sarah took a step back, hands raised in a placating gesture. "I don't want any trouble, Karen. Can we please just discuss this calmly?" "Discuss?" Karen scoffed, her eyes narrowing to slits. "There's nothing to discuss. You've been encroaching on my land for months, and I'm done with it." She thrust a finger toward the ground, emphasizing her words. Swallowing hard, Sarah tried to reason with her irate neighbor. "The fence line is unclear, and I thought the area in question was mine. If I was mistaken, I'm more than happy to." Before she could finish, Karen's hand shot out, connecting with Sarah's face in a resounding slap that echoed through the quiet street. Sarah stumbled backward, her eyes wide with shock and pain. Nearby residents, drawn by the commotion, rushed to their windows, peering out in disbelief. Several noticed the CCTV camera mounted on Karen's fence, its red light blinking steadily, capturing the entire exchange. Raising a trembling hand to her stinging cheek, Sarah stared at Karen, her expression a mix of hurt and disbelief. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she cried, her voice breaking. Karen's lips curled into a triumphant sneer. "You know exactly what's wrong. This ends now." She turned on her heel and stalked back toward her house, leaving Sarah standing in stunned silence. The live feed from Karen's CCTV camera continued to broadcast the confrontation, its reach extending far beyond the immediate neighborhood. As the video spread like wildfire across social media, the community was left grappling with the aftermath of this shocking display of violence and aggression. Sarah stood rooted to the spot, her mind racing. She couldn't believe what had just happened. One moment, she was trying to have a reasonable discussion with her neighbor, and the next, she had been slapped across the face in broad daylight. Glancing around, Sarah noticed the curious onlookers peeking out from their windows, no doubt having witnessed the entire incident. Embarrassment and anger began to simmer within her. Casting a wary eye toward Karen's house, Sarah decided she needed to take action. Marching to her front door, she grabbed her phone and began dialing the police. As the call connected, she took a deep breath, determined to ensure that Karen's unacceptable behavior had consequences. "Yes, hello. I'd like to report an assault," Sarah said, her voice trembling with a mix of emotion. "My neighbor, Karen, just slapped me across the face, and it was all captured on her CCTV camera." The dispatcher on the other end of the line asked a series of questions, and Sarah did her best to provide clear and concise answers. She described the incident in detail, emphasizing the unprovoked nature of the attack and the fact that it had been recorded. While Sarah was on the phone, Karen emerged from her house, a triumphant smirk on her face. She strode toward the fence, her arms crossed over her chest. "Go ahead, call the cops," Karen taunted. "They won't do anything. This is my word against yours, and everyone knows you're the troublemaker around here." Sarah felt her anger boiling over. "That's where you're wrong, Karen," she retorted, her voice steadying. "The entire incident was captured on your own CCTV camera, and the whole neighborhood saw what you did." Karen's eyes widened momentarily, but she quickly regained her composure. "So what? I'll just erase the footage. No one will believe you over me." Sarah shook her head, a determined glint in her eye. "That's where you're mistaken. I've already sent the video to the police, and I'm pressing charges. This isn't going to go away." As the sound of sirens in the distance grew closer, Karen's face fell, the realization dawning that her actions had backfired spectacularly. Sarah stood tall, a sense of vindication washing over her. The tide was turning, and the consequences of Karen's outburst were about to unfold. The police arrived on the scene, their cruisers pulling up to the curb with a sense of urgency. 2 officers, a man and a woman, stepped out and approached the confrontation unfolding between Sarah and Karen. "What seems to be the problem, ladies?" the male officer asked, his tone authoritative yet measured. Sarah quickly explained the situation, describing the altercation and emphasizing that the entire incident had been captured on Karen's CCTV camera. "I'd like to press charges against my neighbor for assault," she concluded, her gaze unwavering. Karen, sensing the tide turning against her, attempted to interject. "Officer, this is all a misunderstanding. Sarah was the one trespassing on my property, and I simply defended myself." The female officer raised a hand, silencing Karen. "Ma'am, we've already received the video footage from the CCTV camera. Based on what we've seen, it appears you were the aggressor in this situation." Karen's face flushed with a mixture of anger and embarrassment as the realization sank in that her attempt to shift the blame had failed. The officers proceeded to place her under arrest, informing her that she would be charged with assault. As Karen was led away, handcuffed and protesting vehemently, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of relief and satisfaction. She had stood her ground, and the law was now on her side. However, she knew that this was only the beginning of a long and potentially arduous legal battle. Turning to the officers, Sarah asked, "What happens now?" The male officer offered a sympathetic nod. "We'll need you to come down to the station to give a formal statement and file the charges. The district attorney's office will then decide how to proceed with the case." Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenges that lay ahead. She knew that confronting Karen's entitlement and aggressive behavior would not be easy, but she was determined to see it through. The community had witnessed the altercation, and with the video evidence on her side, Sarah felt a renewed sense of confidence in her ability to seek justice. As she followed the officers to their patrol car, Sarah couldn't help but wonder what other surprises might be in store as this neighborhood drama continued to unfold. In the days that followed the confrontation, the video of Karen slapping Sarah quickly gained traction on social media, sparking outrage and debate within the community. The incident had touched a nerve, exposing the underlying tensions and resentments that had been simmering beneath the surface. Sarah found herself at the center of a swirling media storm, fielding calls from local news outlets and fielding an endless stream of comments and messages from concerned neighbors and sympathetic strangers. Many praised her for standing up to Karen's bullying behavior, while others questioned the validity of her claims or expressed concerns about the potential consequences. Karen, on the other hand, had retreated into the confines of her home, seemingly determined to avoid the public scrutiny. However, her silence only fueled the growing speculation and rumors about her actions and motivations. As the case made its way through the legal system, Sarah found herself embroiled in a battle of wills with her neighbor. Karen's defense team attempted to discredit Sarah, painting her as the instigator and the one who had encroached on the disputed property line. But with the damning video evidence, their efforts seemed increasingly futile. Sarah's resolve only strengthened as she navigated the complexities of the legal process. She knew that the stakes were high, not just for her own sense of justice, but for the well-being of the entire community. Karen's actions had shattered the delicate balance of their neighborhood, and Sarah was determined to restore it. Tensions continued to escalate as the case dragged on, with the community divided into those who supported Sarah and those who remained loyal to Karen. Accusations and counter-accusations flew, and the once peaceful street became a battleground of sorts. Sarah found solace in the support of her close friends and family, who rallied behind her and provided the emotional and practical assistance she needed to endure the ordeal. They encouraged her to stay strong, reminding her that the truth was on her side and that justice would ultimately prevail. As the legal proceedings progressed, Sarah braced herself for the possibility of a drawn-out battle, knowing that the stakes were high and the outcome uncertain. But with her determination and the community's growing support, she was more resolute than ever to see this through to the end. The legal battle between Sarah and Karen had become the talk of the neighborhood, with residents eagerly following the unfolding drama. As the case moved forward, tensions continued to simmer, and the community found itself divided into two distinct camps. On one side, Sarah's supporters rallied behind her, praising her courage and determination in standing up to Karen's bullying behavior. They saw her as a symbol of justice and the triumph of the little person over the entitled and abusive neighbor. On the other hand, Karen's loyalists remained steadfast in their defense of the embattled homeowner. They argued that Sarah had overreacted and that the incident had been blown out of proportion. Some even went so far as to accuse Sarah of manipulating the situation for her own gain. The constant back and forth between the two factions only served to exacerbate the already strained neighborhood dynamics. Neighbors who had once cordially exchanged greetings now found themselves at odds, hurling accusations and sniping at one another over the fence lines. During this time, Sarah's legal team worked tirelessly to build a strong case against Karen. They meticulously analyzed the CCTV footage, gathered witness statements, and prepared a compelling argument that would hold up in court. Sarah, for her part, remained steadfast, determined to see the process through to the end, no matter the personal cost. Meanwhile, Karen's defense attorneys adopted a more aggressive strategy, attempting to discredit Sarah and cast doubt on the validity of the video evidence. They argued that the camera had been positioned in a way that failed to capture the full context of the incident, and they even went so far as to suggest that Sarah had tampered with the footage. As the trial date drew closer, the tension in the neighborhood reached a fever pitch. Neighbors began to take sides, with some openly confronting one another and even engaging in acts of petty retaliation, such as vandalism or harassment. Sarah found herself caught in the middle of this maelstrom, navigating the emotional and psychological toll of the ongoing conflict. But with the support of her family and the community members who believed in her cause, she remained resolute in her pursuit of justice. As the courtroom showdown loomed, the entire neighborhood held its breath, waiting to see how this high-stakes drama would ultimately unfold. The day of the trial arrived, and the courtroom was filled with a palpable sense of anticipation. Sarah and Karen sat on opposite sides of the room, their legal teams poised and ready to present their respective cases. As the proceedings began, Sarah's attorney took the lead, methodically laying out the evidence and building a compelling narrative. They highlighted the CCTV footage, which clearly showed Karen's unprovoked assault on Sarah, and they called upon eyewitnesses to corroborate the events that had unfolded that fateful day. Karen's defense, in turn, attempted to poke holes in the prosecution's case, questioning the reliability of the video evidence and suggesting that Sarah had instigated the confrontation. They argued that Karen had acted in self-defense, claiming that she had felt threatened by Sarah's encroachment on her property. However, as the day wore on, it became increasingly clear that the weight of the evidence was firmly on Sarah's side. The judge listened intently, frequently interrupting Karen's lawyers with pointed questions and challenges to their arguments. Throughout the trial, Sarah sat calmly, her expression a mix of determination and resolve. She knew that the stakes were high, not just for her own personal vindication, but for the well-being of the entire community. This was about more than just a slap across the face. It was about standing up to the entitled and abusive behavior that had been allowed to fester for far too long. As the closing arguments concluded, the courtroom fell silent, the air thick with anticipation. The judge took a moment to review the evidence before finally delivering his verdict. Based on the testimony and the clear video footage presented, I find the defendant, Karen, guilty of assault, the judge declared, his voice firm and unwavering. The actions taken against the plaintiff, Sarah, were unprovoked and completely unacceptable. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom, and Sarah felt a surge of relief and vindication wash over her. Karen, on the other hand, sat in stunned silence, her face a mask of disbelief and outrage. As the proceedings came to a close, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. The community had witnessed the truth, and justice had prevailed. Now, she knew, the real work of healing and rebuilding the neighborhood could begin. The verdict in the assault case against Karen sent shockwaves through the community, sparking a range of reactions from the residents. Some celebrated Sarah's victory, seeing it as a triumph of justice and the ability to stand up to entitled and abusive behavior. Others, however, remained loyal to Karen, refusing to accept the court's decision and continuing to defend her actions. In the aftermath of the trial, the neighborhood found itself deeply divided, with the once cordial relationships between neighbors strained to the breaking point. The constant bickering, accusations, and attempts at retaliation only served to exacerbate the tensions, making it increasingly difficult for the community to find a path forward. Sarah, despite her legal victory, found herself in an unenviable position. She had emerged victorious, but at what cost? The scars of the conflict had left deep wounds, and she knew that healing the community would be a monumental challenge. Determined to find a way to bridge the divide, Sarah reached out to her neighbors, organizing a series of community meetings and forums. She invited both her supporters and Karen's loyalists to come together, hoping to facilitate an open and honest dialogue. To Sarah's surprise, the initial meetings were tense and confrontational, with tempers flaring and accusations flying. However, as time passed and the residents began to listen to one another, a glimmer of hope began to emerge. Slowly but surely, the residents started to recognize the shared values and concerns that united them, despite the deep divisions that had formed. They acknowledged the need to move forward, to heal the wounds and rebuild the sense of community that had once existed. Sarah's persistence and her willingness to listen and empathize with all sides played a crucial role in this process. She acknowledged the pain and frustration felt by Karen's supporters, while also reminding them of the importance of respecting the rule of law and the rights of their fellow neighbors. Through a series of open forums, mediation sessions, and community building events, the residents of the neighborhood began to find common ground. They worked together to address the issues that had initially sparked the conflict, such as the unclear property boundaries and the lack of clear communication between neighbors. As the dust began to settle, Sarah could see the community slowly but surely mending the torn fabric of their relationships. While the scars of the conflict would likely never fully heal, there was a newfound sense of understanding and a shared commitment to moving forward in a spirit of cooperation and mutual respect. For Sarah, this gradual transformation was a testament to the power of resilience, empathy, and the human capacity to overcome even the most challenging of circumstances. In the months following the conclusion of the legal battle between Sarah and Karen, the once fractured neighborhood began to heal and rebuild. The community's journey toward reconciliation was not an easy one, but through a combination of determination, empathy, and a steadfast commitment to finding common ground, the residents were able to slowly mend the tattered social fabric. Sarah, who had emerged victorious in the assault case, found herself in a unique position of leadership. Though she had never sought the spotlight, her willingness to stand up to Karen's abusive behavior and her subsequent efforts to bring the community together had earned her the respect and admiration of many of her neighbors. Leveraging this newfound influence, Sarah worked tirelessly to facilitate open dialogues, mediation sessions, and community building events. She listened to the concerns of Karen's supporters, acknowledging their feelings of betrayal and the sense of loss they experienced in the wake of the court's decision. Slowly but surely, the residents began to find common ground, recognizing that their shared hopes for a peaceful, harmonious neighborhood far outweighed the divisive issues that had once threatened to tear them apart. They collaborated on projects to improve the area, such as organizing neighborhood cleanups, hosting block parties, and establishing a community watch program. As the community healed, Karen's once fervent supporters gradually came to accept the outcome of the legal battle. While some remained bitter and resentful, the majority recognized the importance of moving forward and rebuilding trust among their neighbors. Sarah's role in this process was integral, as she consistently modeled the values of empathy, compromise, and a willingness to listen. Her unwavering commitment to restoring the neighborhood's sense of community inspired others to follow her lead, and soon, a new spirit of cooperation and mutual understanding began to emerge. The transformation was not without its challenges, and there were times when old resentments threatened to flare up again. But through open communication, patience, and a shared vision for a better future, the residents of the neighborhood were able to navigate these obstacles and emerge stronger than ever before. Today, the once fractured community stands united, a testament to the power of resilience, empathy, and the human capacity to overcome even the most divisive of conflicts. Sarah's story has become a beacon of hope, inspiring others to stand up for what is right, while also embracing the importance of reconciliation and the rebuilding of community bonds. As the neighborhood continues to thrive, its residents know that the road ahead may not always be easy, but they are confident in their ability to face any challenge that comes their way, together.